folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. Today we have an unboxing video, or unbagging as it were, and I apologize for the sound quality. Those of you who watched the counter clipping show this week will know why there's a dull roar in the background. But in the meantime, in happier news, Operational Matters number 2 has arrived from Multi-Man Publishing, and this does contain a full OCS game. So let us open her up and take a look at it. Now the first thing I'm going to do is pull the map out, because everybody wants to see the map. And just at a glance, it is a full-sized map, but the hexes are oversized. And we're going to have a sideways configuration here, so I apologize for that as well. But here is the map for OCS Luzon. So as you can see, this is the Philippines, and the year is 1941. And actually, I think this stretches into January 1942 as well. We do get a little card that contains the contents. We should have a magazine, which we have, a map, which we have, a counter sheet. It is actually half a counter sheet, which we have, and some player aid cards. So let us take a look at the magazine first. So here is Operational Matters number 2, and unless I'm wrong, and I don't think I am in this case, this is also going to be a very good OCS starter kit, because Luzon itself is very small and compact, but it's going to contain a lot of the essential elements of an OCS game, and it's obviously a pretty economically viable way to get into OCS is to buy this magazine with a bunch of informational articles in it. So the informational articles include a Luzon example of play by Mr. Chip Saltzman, who is the current OCS honcho. Tony's top 10 tips on OCS strategy by Tony Zbarachuk, probably mangling that. And Tony also has top 12 tactical tips for OCS, which sounds like it might be usable. Article on best OCS scenarios for beginners by Matsuura Yutaka, who is the designer of OCS Luzon. And then OCS combat results and retreats by Chip Saltzman, fog of war and enemy stacks, and the most overlooked OCS rules, all by Chip Saltzman and the other individuals we've mentioned here so far. So the paper stock is not a typical magazine paper stock. It is fairly heavy. We get a pretty in-depth Luzon example of play in here. We should also see the Luzon game-specific rules somewhere in the magazine. You will need to download, if you're going to start trying OCS with this, you're going to need to download the current OCS rules from the Multi-Man Publishing website. That's not a problem. If you Google Gamers Archive, it will now take you to the MMP OCS or Gamers Support website rather than to the old separate website. So here's Luzon Race for Bataan. And again, the game design here is by Matsuura Yutaka. The development was Chip Saltzman, and series design, of course, by the late, lamented, and we will miss him, Dean Essig. And then we got a bunch of playtesting as well. I did not participate in the playtest of this particular one. So looking at the rules here, as you can see, there's very little in the way of game-specific rules here. I see about 2/3, 1, 2, and then we're getting to optional rules. So there's literally like less than 3 pages of game-specific rules here, which is great for an introduction. There is only one scenario as far as I can tell. We do have the victory conditions, 6.0 setup. You can see that it is a 5-turn game, 22 December 1941 to 5 January 1942. And we get right in after that to designer's notes and historical commentary, of which there is quite a bit, which is good for me. And I suspect a lot of wargamers who don't really know a lot about this particular topic. So a nice map here too. Best OCS scenarios for beginners. This will be going to be a very welcome game, a very welcome article for a lot of folks who try to get into OCS with this. I see we have scenarios from Sicily 2, Korea, Tunisia 2, Smolensk, and Burma, all of which are pretty, maybe with the possible exception of Burma. This designer is also working on a Burma 2, what we're calling Burma 2. So I can't wait to see that. Here we have common beginner mistakes in OCS by Antonello Salvatucci and Paolo Di Francesco, who I don't remember seeing in the table of contents. Did I miss it? That's possible. OCS combat results and retreats is an explanation of how that works. This is one of the things that people get stuck on. In particular, the way that zones of control interact with retreats in OCS, which is a little more intricate than in a lot of other games, and it's kind of maybe the most important thing about zones of control is the way it interacts with retreats. And overlooked OCS rules as well here. So that is pretty nice. And there's a glossy cover. Now, in addition to that, We also get some player aids, which will be super duper handy for people learning OCS. Here's a play aid for supply concepts and trace supply. Here's a reference card for OCS air missions, and on the back of that we've got more about air missions. Here's one for transport, for transporting stuff around the map. On the back of that we've got more stuff on transport. Here's a reference card with key definitions telling you what's a ground unit, what the combat categories are, what the mobility types are. On the back of that we have modes. Very interesting. Combat, move, reserve, strat, exploit, and disorganized are the modes in OCS. Some of those are voluntary modes and some of those are involuntary modes. Supply miscellany and a supply network example using Smolensk as the example, which is a great choice. Combat supply, and on the back of that we have fuel supply. So there's, 5 different reference cards here. I don't know if these are going to be made available digitally or not. I hope so, because these are going to be super duper helpful for somebody learning OCS. Now, you'll have maybe not have noticed, I don't know how easy it is to tell on the camera, that these are oversized hexes on the Luzon map. But the counters are standard half-inch counters. And what you have here is some Japanese counters, some US counters. These are, I'm not sure who these guys are, but presumably at least one of them are native Philippine forces. And then you've got what is probably enough total markers to run a game this small on. So this is a very small game. In fact, other than the fact that it is on a regular-sized map, that regular-sized map has larger hexes. This might be the smallest OCS game in terms of number of counters, certainly. There's no other OCS game that's a half a sheet of counters and that's it. Maybe you'll need some more markers? Maybe not.
Massive thanks to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, whose support and encouragement make what we do at Ardwulf's Lair possible. Thank you, patrons. Links to help support the channel are in the video description, so check out the Patreon, the Ko-Fi, and the merch store, where you can get snazzy Ardwulf's Lair t-shirts, drinking vessels, and other cool swag. There is also an affiliate link for Noble Knight Games in the video description. If you buy stuff through that affiliate link, it helps us support the channel with Noble Knight store credit. Thank you, Noble Knight. Until next time, thanks for watching, and happy gaming.